Good day, ma'am. This is Danica Amolat from BSHM 1A, and for today's reporting is I'm going to report the chapter 2 of organizational management, which is the theory of organization in business industry. Terminology in business. It is a principle can be defined as a fundamental statement or truth providing a guide to through or action. So the fundamental statement applies to a series of phenomena under consideration and signifies what results to expect when the principle is applied. The main objectives of these business terms is the definition of key business information that is used in day-to-day business operation and analysis. So business terms also help to understand information that is used by IT assets by allowing traceability between business terms and asset. And it is well-defined terminology can help people across the various industry communicate more efficiently. Good terminology also work reduces ambiguity and increases clarity, which makes it an important factor in the quality of the business. So the next slide we have here the attributes for the term organization. So the word organization has been used to transmit a variety of meaning by various authors. So a certain author, for instance, defines organization in a broad sense of collection of persons working together for a common purpose. So it means that working together so that the plan will be organized and be oriented. And also, I have here something to add on about the attributes of organization. So the organization must know who they are. So first, the integrity. The organization must act in accordance with its identity. So next, we have the differentiation. So the organization must differ from its competition in some important ways. So lastly, we have the profitability. So the organization must make more money than it spends. Another equally known author employs the group organization to indicate a group of individuals who are cooperating willingly and effectively for a common end. So again, another author uses the term organization to denote a process or activity and defines organization as the process of continuing the work which individuals or groups have to perform with the faculties necessary for its execution. So denote means it is defined as the represent or an sign of something, and also organization is an important because it enables the optimum use of resources through meticulous planning and control at the workplace. So the organization management gives a sense to the direction of the employee, and individuals are aware of the rules and responsibility and know what they are supposed to do within the organization. So next we have here the basic consideration and organization. The building of an effective organization requires the use of sound business judgment. Basic consideration means the consideration whether in money or otherwise to be paid or provided to the provider for any supply or use of any goods, services, or other things under this contract. And consideration also is a promise or performance or forbearance bargained by a promisor in exchange for their promise. And also, consideration is the main element of contract. Without consideration, both parties cannot be enforceable. Next slide. There are multitude of factors bearing on the making of decision. So, in developing any organization, these are the following considerations should be taken into. So, first, there should be a clear and complete statement of the objectives. So the objectives permits all activities within an enterprise. So it influences the number of activities and the extent to which these activities are carried out. And also, it is extremely difficult to judge the effectiveness of an organization without an adequate knowledge of the objectives of the enterprise. um this is very difficult to attain the objectives, and this must be clearly defined. Then they must balance and have a good organization is possible only when its objectives and the profit of the stockholders, wages and working condition of employees, services to customer and relations in the community are well balanced, and that business will be successful. So the second is there should be a throughout analysis of the entire preposition surrounding the business. So once the purpose or objective has been clarified, all pertinent information on the business must be assembled, and all possible courses of action should be analyzed. Necessary analysis should be made as to the product to be manufactured, the service to be sold, markets and channel of distribution, and machinery and equipment, the labor, supervision management, and all the other equipments or requirements. And third, the necessary function should be determined. So, organization building requires the organizers the ascertains those functions which are considered most important and which will require the most attention. Likewise, the complementary function should be logically grouped and placed under the particular department where each group of function correspondingly belongs in any business, whether large or small. So there has to be grouping of all the activities. The organizer determines which groups perform the major operations of the enterprise, such as manufacturing or marketing. He also determines and groups together the functions intended to assist or facilitate the operation of the major function. So among these facilitating function are transportation, legal, warehousing, research, and office service. So the fourth is the men best fitted. So for the work and to head each depart or division should be selected. So picking the people to the band is managerially positions in the organization is a job. So the success of enterprise will depend largely on the ability and skill of the executives who will run it. Next is the underlying principles of organization. So, the foregoing considerations are considered on the basis of underlying principles. So, in as much as each business has condition peculiar to itself, a set of rules cannot, of course, be that would be applicable to the organization of all enterprise. So, however, certain underlying principles can be given. Underlying principles of the organization improves understanding from the knowledge of principles. Managers get indication on how to manage an organization. The principles enable manager to decide what should be done to accomplish given task and to handle situation which may arise in management. So these principles make the manager more efficient. So we have here the next slide. So here are some parts of the underlying principles. So first we have the principles of objective. In starting any business enterprise or in the carrying on how the activity by concern as a whole or by any of its units, a clear and complete definition of the objective is a prerequisite. The objective principle is the concept that the financial statements of the organization be based on the solid evidence. So this intent behind these principles is to keep the management team and the accounting department of an entity from producing financial statements that are slanted by their opinions and biases. So, any business concern or any individual must adhere to a definite purpose or aim of it. So, for example, if it aims is to manufacture and sell quality products, then the entire organization must build with that idea, and those in the company must think and act terms of the quality production. So next is the principle of analysis, and it is the act of breaking up a whole into its parts so as to find out their nature, qualities, importance, etc. A sound business judgment attempts to build an organization through the full knowledge of the requirements of the business, and industrial concerns are organized primarily with the idea of marketing profit. So the best level of profit cannot be as certain unless all considerations bearing upon it are known and steady. Um the best level is not necessarily the highest. So therefore essential that before starting any business there should be a study as to whether the articles to be produced will meet the public's demand, whether they could be produced at the right time and at a price that the public will be able to pay. So the next slide is the principle of simplicity. All the activities which are not absolutely necessary should be eliminated, and those retained should be handled in the simplest practical way. The idea that our simpler explanation of observation should be preferred to more complex ones. And the law of the simplicity indicates that our mind perceives everything in its simplest form, and and the image below and like for example, when studied in depth is made up of individual components have no meaning when viewed separately, yet our mind automatically perceive them in combination to spell out the word logo. So next is the principle of functionalization. So the organization should be built around the main function of the business and not around the individuals. So functionalization is the process of adding new functions, features, capabilities, or properties to a material by changing the surface chemistry of the material, and it is a fundamental technique used throughout chemistry, material science, biology, engineering, textile engineering, and nanotechnology. And an organization built around the individuals, no matter how competent he may be, has been demonstrated to defective in numerous instances in the past when the principal executive became incapacitated. Such concern immediately became as a whip without rudder. Furthermore, an organization built around the individuals. So next is the applying principles of the functionalism. So first step to be done is to show each function or activity required to carry on the business and to segregate this same function or activity from the rest. And the second step is the grouping together of like and complementary functions so as to form several major groups, and in a big concern all the necessary activities relating to manufacturing should be included in another major groups. So the next slide is we have here the principles of departmentalization or departmentation. So in a big organization, the scope of operation can be very broad, those necessitating departmentation to achieve a smoother flow of operation. Means of departmentation can be through function, products, location, customers, process, or by any project of the organization. So the basic requirement of departmentalization is to make the size of each department unit manageable and secure the benefits of expertise and the set of activities, and as a result personal departments makes it possible to expand the enterprise to any extent. And the primary forms of departmentalization are by function, process, product, market, customer, geographic area, and sometimes metric, and also called the project organization. So the next slide is the principle of centralization of authority and responsibility. So there should be a centralized executive control in the army and sometimes in the government. So this known as the command authority. Centralization of authority is the systematic and consistent concentration of authority at a central point or in a person within the organization. And also centralized executive control is absolutely necessary in order to have authority and responsibility definitely fixed. And this does not mean that the executive should attempt to do everything himself. He should delegate certain authority and responsibility of his subordinates, but at any point of in the organization there should be a definite one-man control, and everyone in the organization knows what his job is, what he is responsible for. He reports in case of a problem arises. So the next slide is the principle of limited span of executive control. So it is a limiting factor on the number of organizational units, and their arrangement is an organization structure. So span of control means that a manager can properly control only a limit numbers of subordinates, and after a certain number is exceeded, communication of commands grows increasingly carb, and control becomes is increasingly ineffective and loose. So the span of controllers refers to the number of subordinates that can be managed effectively and efficiently by supervisors or managers in an organization. So as an example, a manager with 5 direct reports has a span of control of 5. So the next slide is the application of principle. The use of principles by any particular establishment is a matter of adaptation. So this is after all the use of good sense in applying knowledge. It is a process of principles, that kind of behavior that represents application of the principles is to describe what is being occurred and what order in a particular situation. So for example, in a businessman organizes his business so that he can predict what will going to happen next on his business. So the next slide is the limiting factors in applying principles. So there are limiting factors present in the business. So the successful businessman applies the basic underlying principles in accordance with a condition in the particular concern. So for example, let us take an ideal organization for a certain new enterprise which necessitates for major division of activities, and this division finance, sales, production, and engineering need a competitive a competent executive in charge of each, and the company, however, an account of limited financial resources, choose one man of broad training to be in charge of 2 major fields or departments rather than to head only. So the man's ideal plan is placing one man for each department was devastated for due to limiting factors that searching for money. Such business concerns as above described may pay dividends as prosperous times in business prevail, but upon the advent of declined activities or depression or change, usually those in charge cannot see the existing condition in their proper light and hence cannot realize that the underlying cause is the lack of sound organization methods. So such kind of business is marked by the absence of coordination of activities, and those are the following situations may come about. First, we have the sale department almost invariably considered its function to consist solely of selling with no responsibility for cooperation with the manufacturing department, and the manufacturing department therefore cannot plan its work accordingly to any schedule of sales expectation and is forced to operate unevenly and inefficiently, resulting in high cost, frequent labor turnover, and excessive manufacturing expense. Likewise, the finance department is concerned solely with its own interest, and this absence of coordination may be carried on throughout the entire organization, and each department operates almost as a separate and distinct unit, so ignoring other departments as if they are competitors rather than co-workers for a common purposes. So the next slide is the organizational manual. It is an organization manual is a supplement to the organization chart by providing additional information on the details presented in the organizational chart. So an organization manual is a loose leaf book or booklet that contains detailed information about an organization. So it is a compact book that details the organization structures, duties, and responsibilities of each position and department, as well as the procedures, method, and also the policies used in the organization. So, we have here the next slide. So, how to diagnose organization. So, the big range in organization developed in recent years has been to wrap everybody up in some pre-packaged solution, but managers are not the same wherever they work. So, the organization itself makes a profound difference to the nature and problems of the men who are attempting to manage it. So, the organization itself makes a profound difference to the nature and problems of the men who are they attempting to manage it. So, there there are at least four linking standards or strands which the diagnostician needs to isolate before he can recommend any sensible scheme for improving the company's performance in human or material terms. So we have here the next slide. We have here the four linking standards, and these must be at least four strands. So first, we have the history. So how and why did the organization take its present form, and also who set the objectives, and how have they changed, and how do its members perceive the environment and its opportunities and problems. So those are the parts of the history. And second, we have here the resources. So the resources, what resources are being used, um um where this capital or materials came from, and what output and contribution does the organization make to the transformation of resources, and what attitude are being held towards those resources. So those are the parts of the resources. And the third one is we have here the knowledge. The knowledge is what special knowledge does the organization process or make use of it, and what is its technology and how it is being applied to achieve the results, and what are the key of factors in achieving, and what special qualities in people are relevant. So those are the parts of the knowledge that is being questioned. And lastly, we have here the relationships. So how is the power exercised and whom? And next, what special interests do individuals or groups within the organization pursue? And how are the relationship of authority, of cooperation, of negotiation being handled both inside the organization and with the outside world? So those are being questioned and being part of the relationship. So again, Mom, I am Danica Amolat from BSHM 2A, and this ends my reporting. Thank you, and God bless you always.